What's going on, everyone? Welcome into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here, talking about how Jerry Jeudy was reportedly this close to being traded. Plus, should George Paton be on the hot seat? And that's why I have this on screen right now. I want to take the poll of everyone clicking on today's video, and I'm curious what the results will say. If you believe in George Paton as a GM, like today's video, because I am very curious to see where everyone stands on good old Georgie boy. But let's start the show off by looking at the Jerry Jeudy reports. So reportedly, the Packers had reached out to the Broncos for Jerry Jeudy, but ultimately the two sides could not come to an agreement. Benjamin Albright, who does a great job of covering the team, said that the Broncos wanted a second-round pick and a mid-round pick for Jeudy. Now, the Packers also reached out to the Steelers looking for Chase Claypool, who ultimately went to Chicago for a second-rounder. So I'm guessing that's the maximum budget Green Bay had for making a wide receiver trade, a second-rounder, and the Broncos were looking for maybe a fourth and a fifth to go along with it, and Green Bay, well, they would not pony up along with some other teams to get a trade done. Now, Benjamin Albright, like I said, was reporting this and tweeted out that for the record, the Packers did check in on wide receiver Jerry Jeudy, but weren't close enough to offering what would have been needed. Listen, I have been critical of Jerry Jeudy for the last month or so after being a pretty big Jerry Jeudy stan. I hope Jerry Jeudy balls out. I hope that he does so well for the rest of the season, George Paton picks up his fifth-year option, and he proves me and a lot of other people wrong. But a second-rounder for Jeudy, that's tempting. That's all I'm going to say. It was tempting for sure. Ultimately, no trade came to fruition. But when you look at what Jeudy has done so far in his career, it is disappointing for a first-rounder. There's really no argument. Yeah, he hasn't had the greatest of QBs, but I think we're forgetting what first-round talent is, which is in year 2, 3, and 4, they're supposed to rise up over any obstacles, not be the excuse maker. That's for picks guys later in rounds. Jerry Jeudy was picked so that if the Broncos don't have a top 10 quarterback, he could elevate a QB around him. That's what the aspirations were. Not for him to be a guy who has a lot of excuses in years 2 and 3. And he's had some good games this year. Had a nice touchdown against the Jags. Had that great 64-yard bomb against the Seahawks. A touchdown against the Raiders. But if this hypothetical trade came across your desk and you were the GM, would you do it? Would you do Jerry Jeudy for a second straight up? This is the last time we'll talk about really any trades for, 5 months until March rolls around with the trade deadline passed. But I think this is a big question we're all asking ourselves right now. Would you do this trade? Let me know in the comment section if you would do this trade hypothetically here. Also, I didn't take any victory laps yesterday, but I might do a tiny little Mario Kart victory lap right now because right before the trade deadline, I had a video go out about Bradley Chubb going to the Dolphins, Jerry Jeudy possibly going to the Packers. And a lot of you guys got on my case in the comments, telling me how dumb idea that was, how that would never happen. It's the NFL, folks. Crazy trades happen all of the time. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to gloat because I'm not necessarily thrilled about trading Bradley Chubb. Yes, I do think that's a good trade for the Broncos, but no one's ever going to be like doing, cartwheels about trading one of their best players away. That's not something you celebrate. You hope that in the long term it works out for you, but ultimately it's unfortunate that the Broncos and Chubb couldn't be a forever relationship. All right, coming up next, in Big Red, does George Paton deserve to be on the hot seat? This has been a question that has picked up steam the last couple of weeks. So we will examine that on today's show. But first, the Broncos do have a bye if you have been living under a rock this week. But coming out of the bye, they take on the Tennessee Titans. And here at Chat Sports, we are all about competition. whether it's on the field or inside the walls of our studios. And we have a Titans Today channel, and I want to double up and more on them. So if you have not subscribed to the channel and you're looking for free daily Broncos content, when Bradley Chubb gets traded, we break it down. Anytime any news or rumors comes out, you get a video. So make sure you subscribe if that's something you're interested in. Or if you want to be a little superstitious, Michael Scott style, well, I'm not going to say if you subscribe, the Broncos will win against the Titans. I don't have that kind of control, but I'm not saying it. So you guys can fill in the gray in the middle. All right, next up, quickly. What could have been? Bradley Chubb and Von Miller. I think today has almost been a funeral for the 2018, 19, and 20 Broncos that were supposed to be filled with the top pass rush duo the league has ever seen before. And unfortunately, we never really got to see it for long. I've got some stats I want to show you guys here. On the left are the games that Bradley Chubb and Von Miller played in together. And on the right are the games where just one or neither guy played together. 21 games together, unfortunately. Think about that. An NFL season when they got drafted was 16 games. That's a season and change. And they were together 2018, 2019, 2020, and half of 2021. 3.5 seasons, only 21 games, but boy, when they were together, were they great. 30.5 sacks. You just hope that that 21 was stretched out to the 56 possible games, which would have been what? 80-ish sacks? Quick math? Someone fact check me? It's a bummer. What could have been. That's all I'm going to say, right? This book is completely closed now on Bradley Chubb and Von Miller in Denver. George Paton, of course, pulling off these two big-name trades, which I think were good trades for the future of this team. It's just a shame that it got to that point, right? There's a difference right there. Not that the trade is bad. It's okay to trade really good players away if you think that's in the best interest of the team moving forward. But you picked them not to trade them, but because you would never have to be in that spot where you needed to look down the line. So next up, should George Paton be on the hot seat? I have seen a lot of you guys commenting about this in our recent videos, so I thought I would bring it up here and have a nice open forum discussion about whether or not Paton should be a toasty seat, a seat warmer, if you will. Now, first things first, BetUS, our proud sportsbook partner, is here to stay, and I'm here to tell you guys about an awesome deal that they have. When you go to chatsports.com/bet and use promo code Broncos125, you will unlock a 125% deposit bonus. It's a little bit ballsy to bet on the Broncos right now, but you can bet on other NFL games, college football, NBA, the Nuggets, the Avs. I love the Colorado Avalanche first period overs. Free money. Make all your picks over at chatsports.com/bet. Promo code Broncos125. All right. Maybe the reason why you clicked on to today's video. Should Paton be on the hot seat? Fractions, divisions, segments of Broncos Country believes that Paton should be on the hot seat. So I think in order to really put a GM on a hot seat, we have to comb through every element that they are responsible for, starting with the draft. And so far, George Paton has had 2 draft classes, 2021 and 2022. Staying with the 2021 draft class, I would say Surtain, a A-plus pick. Javonte Williams was on that way until he got hurt. Quinn Miners, you found a starter in round 3. Baron Browning, another starter. Caden Stearns, another starter. Now, Jamar Johnson, Seth Williams, Kerry Vincent Jr., I understand those guys are not contributors or even on the team, but you're also in round 5, 6, and 7. I won't be very critical of GM's picks in those marks. But you did find a nice one in Jonathan Cooper in round 7. Now, this year, it's way too early to judge any of these picks. It's not fair to Paton. It's not fair to the players. But Benito, the last few games, especially against the Jags, is starting to round out to be a legitimate pass rusher. Greg Dulcich, this looks like a home run pick for round 3. To find that big of a contributor in the 3rd round of the draft, that's the stuff that GMs live for, right? That is what separates them. Nailing your first-round pick should not be your claim to fame. It's what you do in rounds 2, 3, and 4. Those are the picks that make or break your draft class. Damari Mathis, I thought he had a great game following, a great 2 weeks rather, following the Chargers game where he got exposed and picked on. Ioma Wazurike, we've seen nothing of him. Delaire and Turner-Yell, some special teams here and there. Montreal Washington, great preseason, still waiting to see more of that special teams oomph in the regular season. But overall, it's really early to judge these draft classes, but I would say that they have been good draft classes as a whole. You have not seen major busts or first or second or third rounders be riding the bench and not be factors whatsoever. In free agency, the next kind of part of a GM's job. Some notable free agent acquisitions. Ronald Darby signed to that 3-year contract. When healthy, Darby's been great. No other way around it. Darby has been a solid CB2 for this team. That's what he was paid to do. He was not overpaid for this job. He has been great when healthy. It's a bummer that he's out for the rest of the season. Kareem Jackson, I don't know. You find a 30-plus-year-old safety that still lays the lumber, fine by me. Josie Jewell, 2-year, $11.5 million deal, $11.5 million contract this offseason. I love that type of value, especially for when he's out there. I mean, he's had some great games this season in between his injury stints. Randy Gregory, it's still really early, and we haven't seen much of him, but when we have seen him play, tell me he hasn't been awesome. Tell me he has not been getting after the quarterback, forcing fumbles, and having sacks. It's unfortunate that the injury bug continues to follow him, even to his new city, but hopefully after the bye, he'll be ready to go. And then Billy Turner, this is probably a miss on Paton's part, in my opinion, because he expected Billy Turner to come in here and be his starting right tackle. It took a little while to get there. Now that we're here, Turner's been pretty fine, I would say. I mean, he hasn't been flipping pancakes, but he also hasn't been the most hair-pulling tackle on the face of the earth. Contract extensions, another aspect of a GM's job. These have been A-plus deals. Justin Simmons, love it. Tim Patrick, love it. Cortland Sutton, love it. These are all A-plus contract extensions in my book. I do not judge a GM on a contract extension when a player gets hurt later on. Those things are unpredictable, and none of those 2 guys that got hurt, or 3 guys, had major injury history beforehand here. Now the trades. Maybe the biggest calling card of George Paton's career so far in Denver. He traded for Teddy Bridgewater, a 6th-round pick, which honestly, a 6th-round pick for a starting quarterback for, 14 of the 17 games last year or whatever? I mean, the Broncos offense looked a lot better last year with Teddy than this year with Russ, so I'm not going to really pitch a fit over that one right there. Jonas Griffith was like a 6th and a 7th-round pick swap for the 49ers. The Niners thought they were moving on from a borderline special teams guy. Now the Broncos have a legit starting linebacker in Griffith. Love that trade. Von Miller for a 2nd and a 3rd. Emotionally, I know that's tough, but ultimately, at the time, yeah, you didn't expect maybe the Rams to go on and win the Super Bowl, so those picks wouldn't have been so late in those rounds, but I liked that trade. And then Russell Wilson, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and more. I couldn't even fit on screen for Russell Wilson. Yeah, that's the trade we'll talk about in more detail in just a second. But Bradley Chubb for a 1st and a 4th, along with Chase Edmonds coming over. Depending on how that 1st-round pick turns out, I like that trade as well. I think that's the best rooting interest for the Broncos moving forward. But it's the Russell Wilson trade we'll look at in more depth in a moment. But overall, my grades for these pillars of being a successful GM, draft, I'll give it a B+. He's only had 2 drafts, and one of them was 6 months ago. It's really early and premature to say, but I think B+ is about in the ballpark of where it should be. Free agency, B, right? Kind of middle of the road. No huge flops, no horrible contracts, but no home runs necessarily that's played a ton. Extensions, A. Trades, the Russell Wilson trade is tanking the average of the rest of those trades. So to me, it's a C+. Overall, B-, which sounds weird, right? Because this is a GM that's been praised league-wide. Why a B-? Well, Paton's great decisions, and he's had a lot of them too. Like sticking by his kahunas and go with Pat Surtain over some QBs that maybe now don't look too hot, are overshadowed by 2 big flops. The Nathaniel Hackett hiring, which is just objectively bad. It is. I'm not gonna say that a win against the Jags is what turns all of this around. And then the Wilson trade. where you gave up 2 firsts, 2 seconds. I really don't care about the players. Shelby Harris was 30 plus. Noah Fant didn't look like he was going to be here for the next 5 or 6 seasons. And Drew Lock, who gives a shit about that? At the end of the day, those 2 flops really brings down George Paton. And so then it comes down to how you want to weigh things, right? How much value you put into things. If the Hackett hiring and the Wilson trade make up 95% of your judgment for Paton, then yeah, he is going to be on the hot seat. But if you want to look at the whole picture and not just 2 individual items that are big ticket items, then yeah, Paton probably is in much better graces with you. But this is the big question of the show. The only question I really want to ask. Should Paton be on the hot seat? Yes or no? Personally, I mean, while you get your votes in, I'll give you my take. I don't think, you should make any firings after just 2 seasons. That's way too early. I mean, a GM's biggest, claim to fame is his draft picks. It takes more than 2 seasons for those draft picks to really blossom. You don't want to go in a rotation of fire GM, hire coach, hire GM, fire coach, fire GM. Then you're the Cleveland Browns and you never really gain any traction. I think George Paton is definitely on a toasty seat because the 2 biggest moves he has made have been flops. But I'll ask you this. Did anyone really think Russell Wilson would be this bad? No. I mean, Seahawks fans weren't happy about trading him, and that tells you something. And then as for Hackett, that's just a swing and a miss. And that's a bad miss. And you can't afford to have that many in the NFL. But I don't think it's strike 1, 2, and 3 for missing on Hackett and then being like everyone else, assuming Russell Wilson would look like MVP caliber Russ. For that reason, I don't believe he should be on the hot seat. But if you do, I can see where you're coming from. That's going to do it for us on today's show. Appreciate all of you guys for clicking on to it. And I'll catch up with you later with more Broncos news and rumors.